Welcome, guys, to the Fred and Butter podcast. I'm Fred. This is GMB. This is episode 1 of the podcast. And yeah, let's just
We're gonna get right to it.
get right into it. So how are you?
I'm doing good, man. How
Doing
are
good?
you? Excited to start this finally.
Yep.
Something we've kind of always been trying to do for a long time now.
Yeah.
Guess after the pandemic.
It's literally been 5 years now. When we first tried to do this, if you can remember clearly, it was right before the pandemic at ODU. We joined at a WODU radio club.
Yeah.
In the radio club, they had all the equipment, all the sound mixing, laptops, microphones. I don't know if they had cameras or not, but I know you could.
They did have
their,
cameras.
Their focus was mainly radio, but they had the thing where you could do podcasting. And we were so amped to do one.
I also think too that every guy between their 20 to 25s, they want to start a podcast.
It's a male urge to start a podcast.
It's the Nexus event that everybody wants to start a podcast.
But before that was I think before that was discovered for men. We wanted to do one before. I don't want to say we wanted to do before everyone hopped on it, but we wanted to express ideas over something. I remember early on it was a YouTube channel. I remember, you probably don't remember no more, very early on conversation we had right before we moved out. It was a couple of weeks out. And you were like, we need to do something, we need to record something, we need to make a video, we need to do a YouTube channel. And then we were like, yeah. And then we moved out.
Yeah.
And then reality hit those first few weeks, and we didn't do anything. But then when we settled, we went to WODU. Well, we found the club during club day or whatever, activity day, whatever, activity hour at ODU, Old Dominion University, the college we went to, graduated from, here in Virginia. And from there started the podcast.
The podcast dream. Yeah, and I always felt like a lot of the ideas we talk about, we say them, and then I hop onto Twitter or on Instagram, and people are saying the exact same things, but getting millions of likes. And I'm like, God damn, I said that in the living room, and no one heard me.
No one heard you, yeah.
So
could have monetized our expressions, I guess, or put it on paper, or put it on audio track.
And these thoughts, they're valid. They're not just random thoughts.
Yeah. As some of you may know who might tune in, Chris already has a TikTok account. He's been running for a year and some change now.
A year, and I have 100 followers.
So for the ones that do keep up, as you may notice, he's been doing this for a minute. This is my first debut in anything behind the camera on audio. I'm normally behind the scenes kind of guy. I like to do things behind the camera, holding the boomstick. So yeah, this is like a first thing for me. Yeah. So yeah.
I mean, you sound really natural.
Yeah. I mean, no, I'm not worried about that. But it's crazy that all this time I haven't done something. Like I said, we've been thinking about doing something creatively or creative, an expression of some sort, whether that be a YouTube channel or a
podcast,
audio podcast. And you jumped the gun earlier. You started doing your TikTok with all your quick thoughts on random events, random cultural things, movie news. And so, like I said, it's been a culmination of many years, many dry years of just not doing nothing. And last year was the year I really wanted to get things going, and
sadly the pandemic.
No, not last year. Last year wasn't the pandemic. Last year, I'm saying 2024.
Oh, 2024.
I wanted to get things going, and things did not pan out the way I wanted to.
But look, we're here now.
And
we're not gonna waste your time.
In the midst of chaos. There's a reason why I'm back to doing this, is to get my mind off of things. And also, yeah.
I'm just trying to buy a nice car. Hopefully this shit pays out.
Yeah. So for episode 1, we'll be talking about a few things to break the ice. We got a couple of topics, mostly, some easy breezy topics for you guys to just pop in and listen to, see if you agree with some of the
some of our takes.
Some of the takes. For the first topic, we have first thing to discuss is what we've been discussing for a minute now is The Last of Us 2. Last of Us Season 2, the TV show.
Yep. And if you guys didn't know, The Last of Us, I've played that game like since the beginning of time. Played it on the PS3, played it on the PS4, played it on the PS5. I've tried to emulate it on the Switch. Played Last of Us 2 1,000 times. The only thing that I've never platinumed it.
Yeah.
So as many hours as I put on the game, I've never found all the collectibles. I've never platinumed it. I've never gotten 100%, if that's even a thing. Can you 100% Last of Us?
I think the thing with Last of Us is the games is platining them at doing the trophies and finding all the collectibles.
So as much as I love playing The Last of Us, I've never platinumed it.
Yeah.
If
the draw to the game, and for the first time viewers, fun fact, Chris has played it, or GMB or whatever.
Yeah.
Has played it 1,000,000 times. I love the games. I'm a huge Naughty Dog fan. We've been huge Naughty Dog fans from the jump since the Crash Bandicoot days.
Yep.
Even though we skipped over Jackson Daxter for some reason. At least I did.
Yeah, I haven't played that either.
And huge Naughty Dog fan. So when things shifted to PS3, like I said, personally, I love Last of Us. The reason why I feel like Chris plays it a lot, why you play it a lot, is because the story always draws you into
the story too. Also, when we had that first E3 gameplay a long time ago, I remember seeing that gameplay for the first time, and when they were up in that the hotel scene with Ellie, I remember seeing that, and I thought to myself, "Damn, like this game looks really, really good." And had Grand Theft Auto 5 been out already at that time?
It was out. Yeah, it was.
Like, what came first, The Last of Us 1 or Grand Theft?
Last of Us came out first.
And in my humble opinion, I think
then shortly after GTA 5.
When I saw The Last of Us 1 gameplay on the PS3, I thought, this is the best. This is the best gaming the gaming can look. And not only did the mechanics, but how the game looked like what drew me to the game. And then, later on the story was really good.
I think, I don't want to say it's an accessible. I mean, it is an accessible story. Part 1, very great story, inspired by a lot of things. But it was a very groundbreaking game from the jump. That the PS3 version pushed that system a lot. Fidelity, even new gaming mechanics. You play it now, and it's starting to age finally a little bit.
Yeah, you can
starting to slightly age, and you can definitely see in fidelity and graphics. It's starting. Yeah. It's still it still holds its own in the PS3. Who would have thought, though, with Naughty Dog, it would have become a thing where they kind of like how GTA is doing with, or how Rockstar's doing with GTA, or they've done Last of Us PS3, and then they did the PS4, and then they did then they rebuilt it from scratch with the technology of Last of Us Part 2, and made it again Part 1.
When Part 1
brought it onto PC,
did the goddamn show,
and then they did the show.
In the last 15 years, we've gotten like 5 different iterations of the Last of Us
Part
game.
1. It isn't, and funny enough, for Part 2,
we're getting there.
We've only seen, we've only seen the PS5 version,
PS4, PS5, and PC.
And we're about PC, no, PC has not even out yet. I don't think.
It's not out.
I don't know. We have to double check that.
Could have swear it came out on the PC already.
I think it's about it might be out on PC already. That goes to show us, we don't.
Somebody fact check in the comments and tell if the game is out yet.
But
and now we're about to have the show.
The show is the first, like the third iteration of the story of Part 2.
Yeah.
So that's the main topic. Is Season 2? Are we hyped for it? Are you hyped?
Am I hype? I'm gonna tell you this, on a scale of 1 through 10, I am not hyped for it. I know I said 1 through 10, but I'll probably be a 2. What about you?
I was really hyped for the show. I was a real fan of the first season, as you know.
Yeah.
Real big fan, as we were watching it, week by week when it was dropping 2 years ago. And I liked that. I like Pedro Pascal's performance. I like Bella's reinterpretation of Ellie. I like some of the changes. I as I was watching that first go round. I like that they didn't cheap out when it came to production design. Like some of those sets or areas were pulled from the game or recreated right from the game.
Yeah.
And but in some areas they took shortcuts, and I didn't appreciate. And then I didn't appreciate the bigger deviations or getting more context. So going into that, after a while, and then revisiting it recently, or at least a couple episodes, I realized that part one took away a lot of the I don't want to say the mystery, but the little things that weren't said out loud.
True.
Brought it, they in the show they really, I guess, to really give us a full season, they had to give us a bit more, and giving us a bit more meant more that was said between the lines in the video game.
Yeah. Now, when I first saw that The Last of Us was getting made into a show, I guess I was more hype as a fan because I thought to myself, well, it was cool playing the game, but now I want to see how, how will it transfer to live actions. And in the beginning, I guess I'm trying to think what made me hype. Was it the game getting into seeing? I think it was the clickers that made me hype at first, right?
For the show?
Yeah, for the show. Seeing zombies, right? Seeing that iteration being transformed into live screen,
TV.
like the clickers, the bloater, right?
Mm-hmm.
And seeing like certain scenes from the game being transformed into live action, right? And and going into that show, I feel like I was blinded by it all. Like you mentioned that, later on when you sat down with it, like seeing the clickers, when they got rid of the spores, when they introduced the hive mind, me as a diehard Last of Us fan, it's like I was like, okay, I don't care about that, as long as I get to see the clickers, right? And shit, there was like now hundreds of them, so I was like, damn, this is a way better payoff, right? So that's why I was hyped. But then, I was then hyped for seeing the bloater, right? Seeing how they were gonna do that. So seeing all those little things, right, that I wanted to see from the game go into the live action, that's what kept me hyped. But then once the dust settled at the end, right? Once the show was done, it was like, oh shit, it's done, right? The whole season's done. That's when I was like, oh crap, this shit is not good. And that's like any person does, right? They put their guard up. So after I saw the show, I went back to go play the game, and I'm like, God damn, this shit is just completely like different. And then it comes to I start to think like, why even watch a show when I could just watch the game? Why see? In my opinion, because I think the performances are is what's not good, because in the beginning I remember not being too disappointed with the casting, right? I feel like I didn't have that gripe in the beginning. I feel like I got past it. But then as soon as the dust settled, as soon as I could really see the whole painting of The Last of Us show, that's when I was like, why the hell did they cast Bella Ramsey?
You from the get-go were against Bella Ramsey. I remember when they first announced the casting ages ago now. The show came out 23. I want to say 2020 or 2021. Like, look, they casted Joel and Ellie. And you're like, oh, Joel. But like, Ellie does not look like Ellie. And at that time, Bella was a bit younger, and she was she was coming off of a couple of roles. Their biggest memorable one at the time being
Game of Thrones.
A Game of Thrones appearance, or a couple of appearances that she had on the show.
Yeah, and they were also doing that cool casting. I remember it was a moment for Last of Us Part 1 for their casting. They were like dropping like, not a big moment, but it was like, this person just got casted as Joel, and this person just got casted as...
Yeah, it was first Bella and Pedro, and then they kept...
Yeah, they kept... So I think in the beginning with the hype of like damn, we're about to get this show, and Neil Druckmann is definitely involved, Naughty Dog in some capacity is involved. I probably was like, yeah, I'm a little disappointed, but that like the hype of the game just like overshadowed it.
Yeah, or the quality of the game.
But this time around,
we know what we have, we know what we're getting, we know what we might get. But going back a bit, for me from the get-go, I was when they announced that the TV rights and the movie rights were sold for Last of Us early on, back in 2013. I think right before the game came out, maybe. I was very against it. I remember thinking, having those thoughts, because they always say, I don't want to, they always ask, what's the next medium after film or TV? In my mind, it's video game, but I don't, but it's not saying that video game will replace film or TV, or if it's the next thing. I think it's like right adjacent to it, beside it. It's a very unique medium, whereas film encompasses all art forms: music, art, acting, writing. All of that gets transferred to gaming, but in gaming,
You
the
get to
added
control.
layer is you get to control the
You get to
narrative a bit.
control the.
Not control the narrative, but control the main
You
character a
can.
little bit, or you can be the main character in certain stories. So with that being said, I
Well,
always thought, damn, Last of Us One, it's such a great show, it's such a great game. This is the medium. This is the final adaptation. This is the iteration. It doesn't need to
yeah.
be. We don't have to scale back to a TV show or a movie. At that time, it was a movie announced by. Funny enough, it was announced by Sam. It was announced Last of Us movie, produced by Sam Raimi, written by Neil Druckmann, starring Caitlin Danvers as Ellie, who funny enough now is playing Abby in season
So
two.
the person who's supposed to play
Ellie
is now
originally
playing Abby.
Abby, yeah.
Damn, I did
So
not know that. And who was
so
directing this movie?
there was no director attached, but Sam Raimi was attached as a producer. And I think he was gunning to direct it, and it was a Neil Druckmann written movie. And he said it was supposed to be like he was thinking of a two-parter for the movie, like first part of the game and the second part of the game into two movies.
You see, now looking at back at that,
I remember being totally against that, because they were trying also to get an Uncharted movie off the ground, which at that time they couldn't seem to get it off the ground, and since it was in developmental hell at that point for like almost maybe 6-7 years, I thought, Jesus, they're about to be in this same state with Last of Us, and
yeah,
they kind of works from 2013 to 2023, also 10 years from the game to show. And yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I personally think that if we had to choose red pill or blue pill, I would definitely have chosen red pill with the Last of Us movie rather than blue pill Last of Us show, because then if let's say we've gotten the movie instead by an actual better director, right, like Sam Raimi, right, and let's say Neil Druckmann just writes it and Sam Raimi directs it, I feel like we would have gotten the story would have been the characters would have been way better. For example, right, in a world, let's say Sam Raimi directs this movie, Sam Raimi's characters in the Spider-Man trilogy, right, they bond well together. He makes them connect. I'm pretty sure that Sam Raimi would have made Joel and Ellie connect way better than how they connected in the show, because that's another reason why after the dust settled, that at the end, when you got to that scene where Ellie was like, you know, you're the only thing that I have, everyone else is dead, and then Joel's like,
The scene in the house in the video
yeah,
game
the scene,
that just runs away.
the best scene in Last of Us, right? I feel like when we got to that in the show, it wasn't deserved. I'm
It
like,
wasn't earned,
okay,
yeah.
those are crocodile tears. I don't believe them. It's like, especially after the game, after you've done put 40 hours and then you get that, you're like, God damn, that.
That I think that's the reason why the medium of video game can be a bit where creatively and smartly you can use that to your advantage, because you're playing as you're using Joel, and of course the character written and created, they're bonding to the character bonding to Ellie, and you're also in a way bonding with Joel and bonding, by using Joel all that time, and also bonding with Ellie. And in the video game, the cutscenes are not just a story; they're also talking, they're
They're
dialoguing.
talking, yeah,
There's more in between as you play.
yeah.
The set pieces reveal more character information, or give you, they like show and don't they show you but don't tell you. So by the time you get to the part where, yeah, where Joel wants to dump off Ellie, and you don't know why Joel's doing it, he's just acting pretty pissy about it, and he gets into the squabble with his brother.
Yeah.
And then Ellie runs off, and then she takes it wrong, and then Ellie assumes it's because of its old past traumas. It makes for better scenes. It makes for better conflict. Whereas in the TV show, uh, they immediately give you what Joel is feeling deep down, which is the anxiety, which is the trauma that he's feeling. Immediately, that's already out there. He's seeing his daughter, the hair. I don't know if you remember the scene where he sees his daughter's hair. He thinks it's her. He has panic attacks, and instead of arguing with Tommy like in the video game, he cries to Tommy.
Yeah, and that was like
not that it's a bad scene or it's bad.
And I personally believe that it's okay to be sensitive.
Yeah.
But my favorite character of Joel should not be sensitive, right? He shouldn't be sensitive at all, because that's not, unless unless Neil Druckmann should have said in the beginning, fans should know that this is going to be a complete different iteration of Joel. So you guys should definitely be aware of that, because then you start to think like that is not Joel, right? And then that brings us, to why I'm not hyped for Last of Us Part 2, because as sad, yes, when in Part 2, spoilers if you haven't played Last of Us Part 2, so if you haven't played spoilers, but skip this part, skip it a little bit. But Joel,
for the TV people who are keeping up with the TV.
Oh, also the TV,
yeah. So if you never played the game and
if you never played a game, skip a little bit.
Just watching TV.
Or if you just don't care, then just keep watching. But when they get to the point where they're gonna unalive him, I'm gonna watch that. Yeah, I'm gonna be shocked. But then when the dust settles, I'm gonna be like, I really didn't care, because it's like I really don't know this person. I don't know this Joel, right? This is Pedro Pascal cosplaying Joel. So this isn't. It's not Troy Baker, Troy Baker is Joel. Pedro Pascal is playing Joel, if that makes any sense. So once we get there, I'm gonna be like, all right. I mean, it's not deserved, because one of the reasons why I'm not hype for The Last of Us Part 2 is Joel, right? It's not because of Ellie, right? Of Ellie being miscasted, or Caitlin Denver not looking like Abby, or it being split up. Or not being split up, how people want to know if this is going to be the first half of the game or the second half of the game. My personal gripe is Joel, because when we're playing in the game, right, when Last of Us Part 2, when we're out there unaliving all these people, in Ellie's mind, she's doing it for Joel. And even in the user's mind, in the gameplay, in the people who are playing the gameplay, I'm out there button smashing, because I'm trying to get as quickly to Abby to get revenge.
Quickly get to
Because fuck yeah, I just put like 30 hours with Joel last game, and brand new game, and you just take him out. So you quickly grasp onto that. And at the show, I mean, he has a therapist. Like, what the hell? They're going to make us feel sorry for him in that sense of, oh no, like in the game, right?
Yeah.
The whole time, the reason why why Abby is so mad, or I mean, excuse me, why Ellie is so mad, right? And us, the users, is because they were fighting. They were not on good terms. So you're like, God damn, Ellie in a way is guilty. In the show, we're going to feel guilty because he sees the therapist. Because they're gonna make Joel even softer than he already is, and that way we're gonna be like, no man, they just killed
They're speedrunning the feeling bad for Joel.
That's why in the trailer you also see that he's playing with a kid. Like they're gonna guilt the audience into like, in the game. In the game, all we get is the scene where he admits to Tommy that this is what happened. Tommy tells him, I'll take it to the grave. And the dance.
And dance was just years later.
Yeah, the dance, and then straight to it, right? They unalive, and then you, because of the relationship you've built through the other game, you don't need to see, we don't need more to feed on what Joel is, since they haven't given us enough of, in my opinion, enough of Joel from the game. From the show, they're gonna give you a bit more, like, oh look, he's hugging the kid, right? Oh look, he he told Eugene that because those are rumors that he tells Eugene the
Or
secret.
Eugene might figure it out.
Uh, look, they're fighting with he's fighting with Ellie, right? They're just gonna give you a lot more for us to be to for us to. It's like fake hype.
Like I said, like I was mentioning before, on the journey to the first season, skipping a little bit, when it finally was decided they were going to adapt it into a show, I remember still having pushback against it. But then when they say, oh, it's going to be an HBO show, and at that time, 18, 17, I think 2018, 2017, maybe 2019, one of those 3 years, HBO was all the rage with their TV shows. Nothing but high quality TV shows. Uh, I think Sopranos at that time. I don't know what shows were on the air, but they were known for high quality TV shows and high quality adaptations of other works. So it was if you're having a TV show on HBO, I mean it was going to be high quality, uh, not just a cash grab. And immediately after that, after they announced that, it was said that Neil Druckmann was going to be co-creating it, and then they announced Craig Mazin, which was he was coming off his very highly praised Chernobyl show. That was I think it won a few Emmys at that time, and he was a fan of the show. Serious writer, at least he pivoted to being a serious writer because he was coming off a comedy, and from there, and then the castings, I pivoted to okay, let me give this a chance. HBO, it's gonna be a serious show. Naughty Dog's involved. Druckmann, the creator, is involved. But fast forward to now, I feel like all these little intricacies and these little things that are not that the things that bug us from the show. I feel like they've all have been new additions by the new writer Craig Mason. You know, I might be crazy, but seeing some of the interviews, I don't know what it is, but sometimes you can just see it in someone's eyes. Like I can tell that Neil he's excited and happy, but I can tell that sometimes there's these I don't know I don't sense a spirit in his voice when he's talking about the show. I may be the only one
Yeah,
because he's talking about how like there's no I feel like maybe low key maybe and this will never ever come out probably and we're probably just saying it out of spite here. I'm probably just talking crazy. I feel like they bastardized the show a little bit. And I can just tell look at the interviews like he's talking about when he says well, they wanted to when he talked about we were gonna have that in the first show, the therapist, Joel seeing a therapist, but then we didn't have it, and now we found a way to incorporate it in this season. Now it's been years in Jackson. I feel like maybe that might have been him
do you
being
think
like,
Neil Druckmann might not know how to say no? Because I'm thinking to myself, there's no way Neil Druckmann. If Neil Druckmann wanted Joel to have a therapist, he would have gave him a damn
he would have a
therapist.
therapist in the game.
Like what the hell? The
No
game's
spores. I don't know whose idea it
and it
was to have
might
no
go to
spores.
like it might even go down a contract. Like who owns the Last of Us IP?
Naughty Dog.
But okay, so they own the Last of Us IP. Who's
When it
making this?
when it
HBO.
when it comes to TV, I think
So
they
they had
they
to sell.
license, they buy the rights.
So does HBO have any say on like this is the director we get, and this is what they can do? Because then that's what I think that. Because think about it. Let's say Neil Druckmann wasn't even a part of the. It would be completely different.
Oh, it would have gone. Who knows how
Yeah,
it would
and
have went.
just like you mentioned, right? Maybe Craig Mason's these little things are like, hey, this is how I see Joel.
He loved it. He said he was a big fan of the game, and the reason why
Has he ever played the
he
game?
said he was a big fan of the game, so I'm assuming he played it. And but it's like, but then he like the Bill episode was his idea.
That was a great episode.
It was a great episode, but it's like in the video game. And Neil Druckmann said this in his interview with Alex Garland. I don't know if you can see here the writer of Ex
Ex
Machina
Machina, and he also made Men
and Annihilation.
and
They had a little
Annihilations.
creator on creator talk. In the interview, I forget what the context is, but he says that he talks about they're talking about the differences in directing in game and directing in TV or movie, we'll have to pull back and look at it. But Neil says for some, I forget what makes him. I forget how we lead into this part, but he says that, and yeah, there was that was the reason why the bill, the bill in the game wouldn't have worked in the TV. Even though it would have been a thrilling episode, it wouldn't have worked in the TV. And then we did the what we did. But I feel like that's where I noticed it too. Like, that's kind of wrong. You could have had a. He said it right there. It would have been a thrilling episode.
So in a way, he's
Adapting
like,
one for one the bill,
he's
and you could have had more in between. You could have more Bella and Pedro bonding their characters, and could have been a different take, And then you could have reserved a little bit the Bill and the
and that makes
Frank, but and believe it or not, back in the day, that sequence caught a little bit of heat because they thought people thought, oh, Naughty Dog, they're secretly they don't want to be too forward with their gay or what is it? What is it when you incorporate people?
their inclusivity.
Inclusivity. They're hiding it.
Oh, so they were just
They're hiding. They relegated it to just being Easter eggs or assumptions or illusions or having a.
So in a way they had to.
So it was.
This was more of a. You know what? We're not. What we. You know what? We're gonna fix this.
Craig Mason said, let's just go full blown. Let's give him a backstory, which I think would have been fine if they had given us more of Ellie and Pedro. I feel like the Ellie and Pedro we didn't get
exactly. We didn't get like we didn't get a chance to actually see them bond. We
got new things and they removed other things, and it doesn't really.
The only time they bonded, other characters were there. Like we got a full blown episode of Bill and Frank, right? We got a full backstory of Sam, their brother. What was their little brother called?
Henry and Sam.
Henry and Sam, with the backstory of that militia group looking for him. And in the midst of those two backstories, we just have Ellie and Joel just kind of in there. They focus so much on them for them to be done.
Yeah, there's so much focus on that girl.
When we could have gotten an episode of like them exploring, them crafting, right? Them, finding those Starlight comics, right?
Maybe as Easter eggs, but
as them talking to each other, them, hey, hand me that ladder, and
and this goes back to the context thingy. In the video game, you pull up that city and you don't know what's going on. Who are these people? They're hunting. They call them hunters in the game, but you don't know how well organized they are, what kind of faction they are. They're just random groups of people. You don't know that. You just have to assume that as you're trying to survive. And you meet Henry, and you try to survive with Henry and Sam. You get to know more. You get to know them a bit more. You get to bond with Ellie a bit more, video game wise and story wise, because you're kind of still reserved. You kind of like don't trust these two people. Then you bond and you get to leave the city. Like I don't even think we got that. We didn't even get that. We didn't skip that whole part where they have to leave the city.
And that goes to. I feel now this goes on to another topic that Last of Us game has a different goal than Last of Us show. And like there's two different goals here. And I might not be making sense. But The Last of Us show, the goal there is we need to explain to the viewers
what's going on,
why this is happening.
Yeah.
Right? This is why it's happening. While in the show, while in the game, the goal was to Joel and Ellie need to bond because at the end of the game, we have something catastrophic that's going to test the strength of their relationship, that is going to change the course of time, So yeah, we didn't for example, right? When we're riding down with the truck and that guy's like, I need help, and then and Joel's like, are we gonna help that guy? Or Ellie's like, are we gonna help that guy? He's like, no, he's not even hurt. And we run over him, and then in that whole gameplay, in my idea is like, oh no, they're about her Ellie, right? I need to get out of here. I need to get rid of these guys, F these guys, While in the show, it's not like that. It's more of like, why Why are they attacking them?
We get to find out why that's happening.
Why?
Yeah.
Now, do we need to know why?
Because they're looking for Henry and Sam.
Because they're looking for Henry and Sam.
then because Henry and Sam, he did.
And that poses another question for you guys, right? Did we need to know that backstory, right? Or if they just kept it straight point to the game, would it have been better, right? Mm-hmm. And this brings me to another topic that says, but we're bringing this show to people who will never play the games. Yeah. And I'm being a little bit selfish here, but I don't care, right? Go buy a PlayStation 3, go play the game. I don't give a damn if you're 50 or 60 years old. They say video gaming helps the neurons in your brain. Like, I like the exclusivity of, I don't, the Mario, we need a Mario movie. Let's keep these video games to the console. If you want to play it, right? Mm-hmm. Grab a, and if you didn't get to see it, well, oh well, how many pieces of content do you think there are out there in the world that we will never get to see because there's a language barrier, because there's, mostly the language barrier, or a way to, to see these films. And, at the end of the day, we can't enjoy it because now look, we know that the show is a horrendous, it's a downgrade to the true fans, right? To the true fans who love, who love these, and I'm not saying I didn't want a show, because if I want a zombie show, right? If I want a zombie show, I'm going to go watch Walking Dead, right? I'm not going to be craving, damn, let me get a Last of Us show. Mm-hmm. Like, damn, I want to get no. If I want to watch something where I don't want to, if I don't want to have anxiety of me controlling, me ducking, me crafting, me finding ammo, I'm going to cut on the TV and watch Walking Dead. And when I want to control something, when I actually want to, right, if I want to unalive clickers, then I'm going to cut the game on. So I feel like that should have been discussed in the drawing boards. Does this need to be a show? Or should we just focus on more games at Naughty Dog instead of... Because now look, at this point, right, we could have gotten more games at Naughty Dog rather than putting BS into these shows. And, I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for this, but, the people who play these games, right? The people who play these games, and I'm not the only one, is your experience getting enhanced while watching the show? Like, you seeing a cosplay version of Ellie and Joel, is that, do you love the franchise more? No, it's like you're disliking it a little bit more. Like, for example, right, you wanted plain cheeseburger, but the minute you start adding pickles, lettuce, onions, tomatoes,
that's gonna be someone else's preference, though.
That's true, but for the true fans, like
there's a lot of TV fans who love this show, and I guess the idea got across to them, the bonding, and in the end, Joel sees Ellie as his daughter. That's why he does the thing that he does. So, but as for the game, the gamers, or the people who play the game, you realize that it's rushed and it's not earned. But the idea is across from TV for the ones who just, who just probably just watch TV, kind of just casually.
Yeah, because in a way, like, I guess you're right. And you know what? Maybe that's the eternal curse of a fan.
Yeah.
In a casual viewer. Like, for example,
they're trying to do both, and
they're trying for, it's like,
yeah, so
for the fan, that leaves us more questions, more battles, more controversies. But for the viewer, right, they're gonna watch the show, they're gonna cry for the death of, spoiler alert,
yeah,
Joel, right? And us as the fans, we're gonna watch that death, because we've already mourned the death, right?
Yeah.
We've already mourned the death. All the fans, what we're gonna do is be like, damn,
we're just gonna compare.
We're gonna just compare.
Yeah.
And that's the curse, right? Mm-hmm. That's the curse, which is gonna raise more questions. Neil Druckmann, you already got hated on for this game. Why? It's like you're inviting like
more hate.
Let's invite more hate, and then people hate on you already. Well, it's like
hating for so many reasons, but yeah, and there's already, from just the trailers and some of the clips and some of the discussions, like the interviews, there's so many differences already. Like, that makes me appreciate part one a bit more, because at least the spine of the thing's there, the spine of the story's there. Very accessible story, or like a very damn. It's a point A to point B story. It's a voyage, not necessarily an odyssey. I guess you can call it an odyssey, but it's point A to point B, get Ellie to the thing, and in between that is all the story. But whereas part two is not really like that. It's layered, very very layered.
Yeah.
You're trying to figure out what happened the night before. You're trying to get to the killers.
Yeah.
Then you get the Abby perspective and also Abby's backstory, and then you get a mini time jump, and then finally there's so many. It's very layered. It's not a point A to point B.
Exactly.
And season 2 is only 7 episodes, and from some of the trailers, they look like they some of the scenes from the trailers. I could be wrong. Some of the scenes that are being shown, some of them look like the Abby scenes that you don't get to see until you're playing as Abby, which is pretty much the second half of the game. So it's making me think they're probably. I thought that because they said they're splitting the season up, and I thought they would do kind of like the game. They'll do Ellie, they'll do the beginning, Ellie party, Joel's death, Ellie going on the revenge rampage, season finale, Abby, we let you live, and boom, right, it ends right there. What was that?
First podcast, and we're already about to get
robbed.
Okay, now, you just had a great idea there.
And then then part 2 would be picking up from Abby, but I feel like people they're afraid a little bit because kind of like the pushback when there's so many there's so much hate in Division. The second game for a lot of things. One, it got leaked and people didn't without context knew that Joel was dying, a character that they loved from the first game.
And for the viewers who've been with Last of Us from the start, did you get that death spoiled? Did you get the Joel dying? Me, I didn't get that spoiled. Luckily, I didn't get to see that spoiler.
Well, I heard of this going, quick deviation here. When that happened, I heard about the spoilers, and from seeing the documentary Grounded 2, apparently there was more spoilers. There was like gameplay spoilers. There was certain sections of the story spoilers.
The whole plot was out.
And then at one point the whole plot was out, I think. And then parts of the plot were out. I don't know if parts of the plot came out after the Joel death spoiler, but then the Joel's death spoiler, which, when that came out, that was like the big. Everyone immediately started like campaigning against the game, this and that, because she was gonna get killed by a girl. Then you using that girl, all out of context.
Damn, if I would have seen that, my perspective of the game changed?
Funny enough, like probably to me, it got spoiled that someone big was gonna die, and I think this was Naughty Dog playing, doing damage control, and they put out like fake spoilers of their own, and I saw, it was either footage or screenshot footage of Ellie the one dying by the hands of Abby, and Joel going on the. I remember that time thinking like, shit.
In another world, that's the game. That's the true. In another multiverse universe,
that's another version.
It's another version of the story. The last of the between or something.
So I remember thinking, damn, and then I forgot all about it. The pandemic was already in full swing, so it came and went. It was like, I don't give a F. And the game came out, and I was even, like I said, the pandemic had taken over our lives, and you're the one who bought the game. I remember because I would have played it eventually, but I was so out of it, for external circumstances, that you were the one who purchased the game and you played. After, what's so funny too? You played the game first, and I was working, I think, during the pandemic. You played the game first. Is something? You good?
The camera the temperatures have risen.
So let's do
All right, guys, that's our first episode. We're gonna wrap it up here. If not, the camera is gonna explode. And but
we'll pick up with a couple more topics for episode 2.
Make sure, you like, you subscribe, you leave a comment, and follow us on on our platforms that we'll have linked in the description.
Somewhere linked up here, up there, up wherever.
All right. Peace out.
All right.